Welcome to Conversations with Changemakers. I'm Elizabeth Filippouli, the founder of Global Thinkers Forum, an international non-profit organization that promotes accountability in leadership. Over the years, we have built a diverse network of social impact thought leaders with whom we share a common vision to promote values-based leadership. The forum was incubated at Oxford University's Said Business School in 2011. In this series, we interview change makers from different parts of the world. We want to hear how they're going through this coronavirus crisis as professionals and as individuals. And we invite them to share insights and forecasting for the day after. Today, I'm interviewing the well-known Egyptian journalist Shahira Amin. Shahira Amin is an award-winning journalist. She's based in Cairo and she's the former deputy head of state-run Nile TV, and she quit her job at the height of the 2011 uprising to protest censorship of her work. She has since worked as a freelance writer for Index on Censorship, CNN, and as a filmmaker, producing documentaries for UN agencies. Welcome to Conversations with Changemakers, Shahira.
Hello, Elizabeth. It's good to hear your voice.
How is the situation in Egypt during the COVID-19 crisis? Give us the picture. We're now 2 months into the crisis, perhaps a bit longer. How has the situation evolved, changed, and how do things progress, both in terms of measures, but also in terms of how people react?
Well, like most anywhere, Elizabeth, the situation is dire, I would say. The curve is still rising steadily in Egypt. The number of confirmed cases have reached 12,700, and that's up until May the 18th, yesterday, with a total number of 645 deaths so far. Yesterday alone, there were 535 new cases recorded, the highest toll since the start of this pandemic here. As you may be aware, Egypt has been in partial lockdown since mid-March, with a nighttime curfew from 8 p.m. until 6 a.m. and the fasting month that we're in now from 9 p.m. until the next morning. All theaters, places of worship, restaurants are closed except for delivery services, sports activities cancelled, but the shops and malls remain open by day. Domestic and international flights were suspended in mid-March, but more recently, the government announced an easing of this lockdown. They're allowing 25% occupancy in hotels for this month, and as of next month or mid-June, 50% occupancy in hotels. But the beaches are closed, swimming pools are closed, all activities are closed. So I don't know why people would be, traveling to, say, the Red Sea resorts or the beaches in Alexandria. But we have the Eid holiday coming up just round the corner. And the government is imposing greater restrictions for that holiday because they don't want, of course, public gatherings and crowding. It's a tradition during Eid for families to get together. It's a time, yes, of family visits, of outings. So the government is taking extra precautionary measures, slowing, they want everything closed down during the Eid holiday, and the curfew then will start at 5 p.m. instead of 9 p.m. to keep people home if they can. If we look back at when it all started, at first people didn't take the pandemic seriously at all. there was total indifference. I think it didn't sink in until we had the first coronavirus deaths, and suspension of flights was a wake-up call. And I think this is because many Egyptians, their life is a daily struggle. So there's this general feeling that, people think we have survived the many challenges that we face on a daily basis. Why would a virus with flu-like symptoms scare us? That was the perception at the beginning. So they were, joking about it, and nobody was wearing a face mask. But, that has gradually changed. With the rising number of deaths, people are now taking more precautions. They won't leave home without their face masks. And they're also observing the social distancing rules. Just yesterday, I went to buy bread here in my neighborhood, and I was quite impressed to see, people standing apart, keeping their distance, all of them wearing masks. Very unusual for Caireans. If you can imagine, Elizabeth, this is a city of 20 million people. So, public spaces are often packed with people standing shoulder to shoulder most of the time. But, having said that, the markets are still overcrowded. And, with Ramadan, people are stacking up on groceries and for the iftar meal. So I do see online, pictures of very crowded markets where people are going about their daily business as if, it's business as usual. Still, I would say that many people are working from home. But there are those, of course, that rely on daily wages. There's a high poverty rate in Egypt, especially with the austerity measures since 2016. So, it's impossible to ask these people to stay home because their families would starve if they didn't go out to work. Now, I'm reading that Egypt's hospitals are at overcapacity right now. We have a weak health system. So there is a shortage in equipment, in protective gear for doctors, also a shortage in doctors and nursing staff. And sadly, many of the infected cases are doctors and nurses, health practitioners in general. And they've been complaining in videos online of lack of protective gear and the measures at hospitals. So that is one low point.
I read about incidents where people were prevented from burying family members who died from COVID-19 because the locals were terrified of getting the virus. And it seems that in Egypt, the virus is turning into a stigma. So those who have been affected, they try to keep it a secret as though the illness is a curse. Is that the case?
There is a stigma associated with the coronavirus, yes. And this incident did take place, I believe, in one of the Nile Delta provinces, where the residents of that village tried to prevent a burial from taking place. But they later apologized for what happened. I think it's all due to lack of awareness. A lot of ignorance, and I'm afraid that this is spreading online. We have all these myths about COVID-19, all these, misconceptions and fake news, especially about coronavirus treatments. You would see it on the talk shows, so in the media and also on social media. We've heard all sorts of outrageous things like that brown beans, we eat fool for breakfast every day. That's the traditional meal in Egypt. They say that is a prevention. or that garlic and onions prevent coronavirus, or if you gargle with hot water and lemon, then that will prevent the virus from reaching your chest. So all of these myths, and people are gullible and they tend to believe. And this is very, very dangerous indeed.
Is people's psychology affected when you talk to family members, when you talk to friends and colleagues? How are they dealing with it? Because, for example, I have found that people who have been used to working from home, let's say, they are not as challenged with the current reality. They continue to work from home, or they have adapted by introducing some new habits, walking more, exercising more, reading more. And then people who have been not as easy in handling either their relationship at home or their solitude, they're finding it really challenging to adapt, and that affects their psychology. What is your experience?
I would say it's mixed, Elizabeth. You do hear about cases of, people depressed. For instance, my own mother, because she's all alone and we haven't been able to visit her as often as we'd like. She was used to seeing the grandchildren, to having people around her, and now she feels lonely. And since elderly people, I would say, are the most affected. But also, we weren't prepared for all of this. It hit us suddenly. So now we've all been in quarantine for, say, 2 months almost. And I think, yes, my friends are getting restless, and they, like a lot of people in Egypt, were waiting for the Eid break, and now they're absolutely devastated to hear that there will be extra restrictions during the holiday. They were just waiting to go to the beaches and to the park or to go out, and that's not going to happen because they're going to be stopping transportation, all the malls will be closed, all the theaters. So they're beginning to realize, hey, this is going to last longer than we, bargained for.
And what is the expected impact on the economy? Egypt's tourism sector, for example, which is a main industry, has been badly hit over the last few years. And now this. And is the government introducing support measures for entrepreneurs, for people who perhaps will lose their jobs because of this crisis?
Well, yes, the economy was just beginning to show signs of recovery before this happened. And as you rightly said, tourism is Egypt's biggest foreign currency earner. It's been hard hit and will continue to be hard hit, I believe, for a long time now, even though the tourism figures had returned to what they were before the uprising. So we were having record numbers of visitors just before all of this happened. Now, and that is why the government has said that they're opening up the hotels, 25% occupancy this month, 50% next month. But I doubt that, people either from outside the country or even domestic tourism will pick up anytime soon. I doubt that will happen. The government is trying to minimize the losses as far as possible, and that's why they are opening up various sectors of the economy despite the pandemic. The new administrative capital that is under construction work hasn't stopped there. It has continued throughout this pandemic, despite the risks of infection spreading. And we had many of the prominent businessmen speaking in the media and saying that they're opting for herd immunity, basically, because they don't want their businesses to suffer So we hear statements like, if a few people die, but the country has to survive, the economy has to survive. And it's very sad to hear statements like this.
People tend to think, we tend to say, why is this happening to me? And I'm wondering whether, in that case of such a global crisis that one way or another, or in many ways, is affecting all of us, how about thinking, what is this crisis trying to teach me instead of why it is happening to me? What is your take? What do you think that as human beings, as citizens, as people, we are going to learn, or we should learn, we should take as a lesson from the COVID-19 crisis?
We're in this together. I'm sure you've heard that many, many times from different people. We are all in the same boat. And I think the biggest takeaway is that, we have had to stop and think and reflect on our lives and the way we are living our lives, but also about the selfishness and greed. I think people are becoming less selfish, I hope, thinking of others before themselves. Like every time I want to go out, I think that maybe I would be compromising my daughter's health or my mother's health, and I decide to stay home for them. So we're all thinking of others, I think, putting others' interests before our own. And this is a good thing that has come out of this pandemic. But on a personal level, I've been working from home, as you have been, Elizabeth, and I've been, continuing to write articles. I try to do my interviews over the phone or online. But I've also taken the time to reflect about the things that matter most in my life. And for me, it's family, it's my children, it's my mother. And for the first time in over 2 decades, I'm actually taking care of all the household chores by myself, watering the plants, cooking homemade meals, healthy homemade meals, I would say, instead of ordering in. And after the first few weeks of the pandemic, you realize that life doesn't have to be at the crazy pace that we were living it, slowing down, taking time to breathe, read a good book, as we were discussing earlier, listen to music, and even just enjoy a good cup of coffee on the terrace, where for the first time in many, many years, I can hear birds chirping outside because of the reduced traffic and the reduced pollution. And for the very first time in many, many years in Cairo, I can see stars at night. We couldn't see them before because of the heavy pollution. So, these are little things, but they mean so much. And I would say that once things open up again, if and when they do, I would want to hold on to these little things, which are the big things now.
I'm very tempted to close her conversation on such a positive note, but I can't stay away from asking you, because I know you've been a staunch advocate of women's rights through the decades, and we have been doing things together and in parallel to support other women. And what we see now through this crisis is that women are overburdened. And by saying overburdened, I mean that they have to work from home. At the same time, they have to look after small kids. They need to look after homeschooling. They need to care for the elderly. And sometimes, very often, they have to suffer a form of domestic violence. And that doesn't necessarily have to be physical violence, which is frequently the case, but it could be psychological abuse or verbal abuse. And because people are now stuck at home, so they are together 24/7 instead of being able to go out and take a break from routines which are not always ideal, now the home has become a prison. What do you think that we can do, or UN Women or organizations like ours can do to better that situation?
I think the media has an important role to play in, creating more awareness of this situation, like even just advising women to go out for half an hour every day to cycle if they can in an isolated park or something, or go jogging, or release that energy, or take some me time for themselves. Also, maybe online support groups where women can talk and discuss their problems. Just, finding that. I find that a very good way is to join some of the gym classes online, aerobics, and we do it together in a group. The internet has played a vital role, I would say, in all of this and helping ease the situation. But as you say, a lot of women are stuck at home in, crammed spaces, and couples are getting on each other's nerves. But I've also seen some very good examples, Elizabeth, of husbands helping out their wives, cooking, cleaning, taking care of the kids while the mum finishes her work online. So there are also some, positive cases, because a lot of men too are working from home and are now sharing the responsibility. But of course, women should never put up with domestic violence or even verbal abuse, which is violence. And, they have to put their foot down and, get out of a situation that doesn't suit them well.
And a final question is about Madam Master's editor-in-chief, Lina Atala, who was arrested, but then she was released. What happened there?
We've had the security crackdown on activists, on journalists, on human rights defenders for the last several years now. That's been in place. And during the coronavirus pandemic, it hasn't gotten any better. In fact, it's not just Lina Atala, but a number of social media influencers have been arrested in the last few weeks. Two of them, young girls aged 17, who were, they were named the TikTok girl. They would just dance and share their, videos dancing, and they have been arrested and accused of inciting immorality and violating family values. So the government continues to act as the guardian of morals. One belly dancer has also been arrested for her online videos that prosecutors said were raunchy. Lina Atala's case, I would say that Madam Masr is the only independent news organization, news outlet left in the country today. They continue to do excellent reporting despite the pressure, despite the fears of arrest and detention of journalists. Lina was arrested because she went outside Tora High Security Prison to interview the mother of Ala Abdel Fattah, a blogger and IT programmer who has been in jail since September in pre-trial detention. He has not been charged with anything as yet. And he has been on hunger strike. He was entering his second month on just, liquids. He was on hunger strike. Since this coronavirus outbreak, those detainees in pre-trial detention have not been allowed any family visits. And his mother has been relentlessly trying to get him medical supplies, even a letter. And it was her 22nd visit to the prison, and she was denied again. And we've seen photos of Layla Suwaif sleeping on the pavement outside Tora prison. So Lena went to interview her, and that's when she got arrested. Now, the charges against her is that she was taking photographs in a forbidden area. That was what she was charged with. Luckily, she did not stay long in custody. It was just a few hours, and she's been released on bail of 2,000 Egyptian pounds. I think it was just a message, to send a chilling message to other journalists, to intimidate and silence government critics.
Shahira, I would like to thank you for this conversation and say that I really look forward to seeing you in person, hopefully not before too long.
I hope so, Liz. Take care, and it's been wonderful talking to you. See you soon, I hope. Please stay safe and take good care of yourself.
Shahira Amin, thank you for giving us the picture from Egypt, and thank you for listening to the Global Thinkers Forum podcast, Conversations with Changemakers. Follow us on social media on @GlobalThinkersF on Twitter, and you can email us on info@globalthinkersforum.org. We invite you to explore our work and join our incredible network of international decision makers and thought leaders and change makers who want to do something to change the world in many positive ways. Keep safe, keep well.